Winning feels nice. Losing feels personal. Find $10 in an old jacket, and your day gets a little better. Lose $10 from your wallet, and the day suddenly has a stain on it. The amount is the same, and the math is identical, but the feeling is not even close. A gain feels like a small bonus. A loss feels like something was taken from you. Once that feeling takes hold, it changes how you think. The pattern usually shows up in ordinary decisions first. The delivery fee that annoys you, the discount you almost missed, the subscription you forgot to cancel, or the refund that feels more satisfying than the original purchase. Small financial decisions reveal a strange pattern. Your brain does not treat winning and losing as opposites. It treats losing as a threat. That is the puzzle. If two outcomes are equal, why don't they feel equal? Why does losing $10 feel more intense than finding $10? Why does avoiding a loss often feel more urgent than getting a benefit? The brain does not experience every number the same way. Some represent extra value, while others feel like a penalty. It experiences some numbers as safety and others as damage. This is where loss aversion begins. Loss aversion is the mental shortcut that makes losses feel heavier than equivalent gains. Not slightly heavier, but noticeably heavier. A gain is processed like an improvement. A loss is processed like a warning. And once a choice is framed as, "you might lose this," the brain goes on alert. It pays closer attention, becomes more defensive, and starts looking for ways to protect what already feels like yours. That is where the chain reaction starts. First, the brain flags the loss as more important than the gain. Then, the frame around the decision starts doing extra work. The exact same choice can feel entirely different depending on whether it is presented as getting something or losing something. Save $10 feels pleasant. Don't lose $10 feels urgent. Get a bonus feels nice. Miss this bonus feels irritating. The actual value did not change. The frame did. And the brain responds as if the second version matters more. You can see this in simple, everyday choices. Someone offers you two deals. One says you get $5 back. The other says you avoid a $5 fee. The second option feels more serious. The amount is small, but the frame makes it feel like protection. Or think about splitting a bill with a friend. If you accidentally pay a little extra, even a tiny amount can linger. You may not say anything. You may tell yourself it does not matter. But part of your brain keeps the receipt open. If the situation were reversed and you accidentally saved the same amount, you might barely remember it. That is the imbalance. A small gain is quickly forgotten, while a small loss demands an explanation. This is why people will spend 10 minutes fighting a fee they would not spend 10 minutes earning as a bonus. The effort is about getting back to even, about making that small loss disappear. Now, scale that up. Online stores understand this very well. A discount can be framed as a reward, but urgency usually appears when that discount becomes something you are about to lose. Sale ends tonight. Only 2 left. Your cart will expire. Last chance. These phrases work because they change how we categorize the choice. You are no longer just deciding whether to buy something. You are deciding whether to let an advantage slip away. The product may be the exact same one you ignored yesterday, but now it feels like you are about to lose out. If you do nothing, something seems to vanish. That is why limited time offers can make ordinary purchases feel strangely tense. The question shifts from desire to regret. Do I want this? Becomes, will I regret missing it? And regret is a stronger signal than desire. This same pattern shapes public reaction too. People often respond more strongly to what they might lose than to what they might gain. A policy promising future benefits can sound vague. A policy warning people about what could be taken away can feel immediate. A public debate about improvement often moves slowly, but a debate about loss moves fast. The audience does not need to understand every detail. They only need to feel that something familiar is under threat. That is why loss framing is so powerful at scale. It compresses complexity into a warning. Instead of asking people to compare outcomes carefully, it gives them a simpler task: protect what is already yours. In that mode, the strongest argument is the one that makes the potential loss feel most immediate. Then comes the highest stakes version. Loss aversion does not just shape private decisions. It can change the dynamic of an entire room. Picture a meeting where a new idea is being discussed. One person says, "This could open up a better opportunity." That sounds positive. But another person says, "If we do this, we might lose what already works." The mood in the room shifts. People go quiet. The risk suddenly feels larger than the potential reward, even if the new opportunity is demonstrably better, even if the data supports making the change, and even if the current system has obvious flaws everyone already knows. The word "lose" makes the old option feel safer than it actually is. And now, disagreement becomes much harder. Anyone supporting the change has to pitch a potential gain. Anyone resisting it gets to defend against a potential loss. Those are not equal positions. The person pitching the gain has to inspire confidence. The person warning of the loss only has to create doubt. That is how a single, cautious voice can steer a group, stalling an idea before it is ever tested, simply by making the alternative feel risky. This is the brain's flaw. Loss aversion exists for a reason. A creature that ignored losses did not last long. Losing food, shelter, status, tools, or protection had massive consequences. A missed opportunity was disappointing, but a real loss could be fatal. So the brain learned to treat losses with extra force. It was easier to survive by overreacting to potential danger than by calmly balancing every possible reward. That rule makes sense in a hostile environment, but it misfires in modern decisions. Today, the loss might just be a shipping fee, a countdown timer on a sale, a canceled subscription, a slightly less favorable deal, a policy change, or a familiar option being replaced by a better one. The threat signal remains incredibly strong, even when the threat is tiny. And that is what creates the sting. The same alarm that protects you from bad choices can also keep outdated options locked in place. It can make you defend things simply because they are already yours. It can make you suspicious of improvement because change requires letting go of something familiar. It can make a weak argument sound compelling if it is framed as protection. And it can make a strong argument sound reckless if it is framed as a risk. That is the irony. The person offering a better future has to explain uncertainty. The person warning about loss gets to sound practical. So the brain ends up rewarding the frame that feels safer, rather than the choice that works better. This is why losing feels personal. A loss doesn't feel like a missed bonus. It feels like a minor violation. Something you had, or almost had, has been taken away. When framed as a loss, a decision stops being about math. It becomes about defense. So the next time $10 appears or disappears, your reaction might seem like simple common sense, but the imbalance is already at work. The gain gets a nod. The loss gets a case file. And that glitch doesn't stay inside your wallet. It shapes what we buy, what groups resist, what arguments spread, what changes feel dangerous, And what choices become nearly impossible to judge clearly once someone says, "You might lose this."